Hi, it's Christina with the Sisyphean Journal. Today is June 30th, and we're looking back to 1982 and a case where I still think the CDC is right that there's no legitimate reason for a woman to bleed to death after an abortion. But in this case, I do think that the doctor in the case got a bum rap. I think he did at least encourage action that would have saved this young woman, but you'll hear the story. So, 17-year-old Jennifer Sudduth underwent a safe, legal abortion performed by Dr. Franklin Henry Frank Robinson Sr. on June 30th, 1982. On the drive home, Jennifer bled heavily, which alarmed her 20-year-old boyfriend, John Fredzis. And I'm just going to refer to him as John, not by his last name, because I find that very hard to pronounce. And John said that he had called the clinic repeatedly over the 4 hours after their return home, but staff wouldn't put the call through to Robinson. One nurse, he said, admonished him to be realistic about how severely Jennifer was bleeding. And by that time, Jennifer had bled through 2 pairs of sweatpants, 2 blankets, and a towel. And at last, the boyfriend said he was able to contact Robinson at another clinic in La Puente, but he said that Robinson insisted that the bleeding was normal and told him to stop calling. Now, the staff blowing him off is totally believable. I have seen a lot of deaths where people either called the clinic or were unable to reach them. In the case of Jennifer McKenna Morbelli, the emergency number her family had been provided with went to Leroy Carhart's wife's equestrian supply business instead of to any kind of medical help. But we'll continue and find that there are some holes in John's story. Robinson himself agreed that John had repeatedly called the clinic, but he denied dismissing Jennifer's symptoms as no cause for concern. He said that he told John to bring Jennifer back to the clinic, but John said he was too tired to make the drive. Robinson said he then told John to either call 911 or take Jennifer to the hospital himself. He said, I was practically pleading. Robinson said John told him that he didn't want to go to the hospital or call 911 because then people would find out about the abortion. And he said that when John stopped calling, he assumed that Jennifer was at the hospital being attended to. So, we have the agreement that there were a lot of phone calls, and I think we've got an agreement that Robinson told John to stop calling. I can't fix this over the phone. You need to take her to the hospital. We'll get to that a little bit more later. So when Jennifer went into convulsions, John said he called an ambulance. Paramedics arrived at the home to find Jennifer was already dead. She'd lost at least 6 quarts of blood. Police interviewed the weeping and hysterical boyfriend and then immediately botched the investigation. Sergeant Miriam Travis, who had been called to the scene to investigate, didn't collect any evidence. Not Jennifer's clothes, not the towels or the truck seat she'd supposedly bled so heavily onto. And she only took 4 photographs at the scene because she ran out of film, and she later lost 2 of the photographs. Now, Robinson said he learned about Jennifer's death when 4 patrol cars and at least 10 armed officers arrived at his clinic, and he was booked for first-degree murder. And he was held without bail for 2 days before he was finally released. After posting bail, Robinson told the Los Angeles Times that Jennifer had been perfectly fine when she left his office. She came to me for an abortion, and I gave her an abortion. I gave her the best surgical technique I can do. To call that murder is incomprehensible to me. Now, the Centers for Disease Control indicated that there really is no legitimate reason for a woman to bleed to death after a safe legal abortion because modern technique makes it fairly easy to not injure the woman. You can determine that there is bleeding and you can treat the bleeding. But this case is complicated by the fact that she had gone home and there was the what happened after she got home question. The charge was reduced to manslaughter, and during the second week of the trial, Sergeant Travis found a box of her mail which had accumulated in her old office after she had relocated within the building. In that box were John's phone records. Now, John had said that he talked to Robinson at the La Puente clinic shortly after 2:30 p.m., but the phone record showed that the first call to La Puente was not until 4:39, less than 45 minutes before the paramedics pronounced Jennifer dead. So it's entirely possible that Robinson does have some fault for the first clinic dragging ass about contacting him. But he himself was not blowing John off starting at 2:30 when there was still plenty of time to save this young woman. Now, with the evidence more strongly supporting Robinson's version of events, he was acquitted. But interestingly enough, California counted Jennifer's death as due to an illegal abortion, probably because of the charges against Robinson at the time. And I still think that there was no doubt some screw up, but if Robinson's statements are true that he told Jennifer's boyfriend to seek immediate medical care for her and instead he dragged his butt and didn't, then the boyfriend needs to assume a lot of the blame here. And the other aspect is that they delayed seeking care because he wanted to keep the abortion a secret. And this is something that was discussed at a National Abortion Federation meeting that I listened to. Teenagers who have abortions without their parents' knowledge often suffer more severe complications than teens whose parents know about the abortion because they don't seek prompt help when they're suffering complications. They don't want their parents to find out about the abortion, which is another reason why abortion clinics should be involving the parents as soon as possible, so that when there are problems, this frightened girl isn't hiding it from her parents and winding up with a hysterectomy or a colostomy in a coma or even dead because she's trying to hide these complications.